Okay, this is part 2 from today's journal. Writing or talking. Feels good to be talking, actually. I was feeling very shaky when I came into the kitchen earlier this morning. Last night I was very shaky. I knocked Priscilla's computer off of my knee and onto the floor, onto the cement floor. It had the modem sticking out, the USB modem. I was afraid I damaged the modem, damaged the computer. I just had to cover my eyes for a while, curl up in a little ball. I crawled over to the door and started banging my head against the door. I used to bang my head against the wall when I was a kid. No one really understood how much pain I was in. I didn't understand it. My father, I think, used to tell me to stop banging my head against the wall because I was breaking the plaster. So anyhow, Yvonne Perry claims on her website, which is called something like Whose Stuff Is This? She claims she can communicate with dead people. And I realized, as I thought about this, that it's more important and more helpful to communicate with living people. Sorry if I sound a little sarcastic, Yvonne, or whoever believes in these kinds of things. My sarcasm comes from my pain, let's say. Now I'm going to talk about Priscilla and her cynical or skeptical, let's say skeptical, very skeptical nature. None of these New Age ideas, even like the power of positive thinking, which I somewhat believe in, work with Priscilla. She has let's say a very strong, according to a guy we both find interesting, Bruce Lipton, according to Bruce Lipton. Now I have to say he's a bit too New Age and a bit too far out there when it comes to his belief that, like, positive thinking, that's kind of simplistic, but let's just say positive thinking or changing your thoughts or whatever can heal you and stuff, because we don't think it's going to replace a finger that's been cut off or a broken leg or something. But anyhow, I don't really think positive thinking would stop a child from being abused, raped by their parents or relatives or something. And a lot of these New Age people talk about playing the victim, but when you're a child, you are a victim. You don't have all the options available to you that adults have. You're legally, financially constrained, independent. Anyhow, so Priscilla's very skeptical, and trying to find some way that I can help her heal that what we think is her overreactive immune system, which seems to be eating away at her body. And I'm coming to the belief that from all the stress in her life, her immune system did just that. It overreacted. And now it's attacking her healthy cells. I read that about lupus, I think. So anyhow, Bruce Lipton talks about invisible fields, which is interesting. He talks about the magnets, the particles of iron. When you spread some iron dust on a piece of glass and hold an iron underneath and move it around, the particles all form that shape that most of us know. And he says trying to understand why the particles form that shape without understanding that there's an invisible field and understanding the force or power behind that invisible field is never going to get anywhere, really. So I think spiritual people and religious people want you to believe that there's some kind of loving field, or I think beneficent force is what Judith Orloff called it in her article about suicide. They want you to think that there's some kind of loving field. I'm going to say a loving field, like there's some kind of loving energy. But I like the idea of field because I can relate to when he says a magnetic field. I can relate to that because I've seen those little particles. So I'm going to talk about a loving field. And I not go so far as to say it might be possible that if Priscilla were really truly surrounded by some kind of loving field, that this might affect her DNA, as Bruce Lipton talks about. Affect her cells, the cells in her body, so they stop attacking her body. I'm kind of oversimplifying what Bruce Lipton talks about. I got this from a video clip that was promoting tapping. I think they basically used Bruce Lipton to try to promote tapping because he doesn't really talk about tapping. He just talks about all this energy field stuff and how powerful your subconscious mind is compared to your conscious mind, and why it's difficult to just have positive thoughts unless you can really like reprogram your subconscious programs. He does a pretty good job of explaining that. He says it's like a tape recorder where your the tape player is sort of like well, let's see. I'm not sure if I'm going to try to explain this, but basically he says I'll try to explain it. The tapes in the tape player are your subconscious mind, and they're pretty like deeply recorded or something, and you have to learn to be able to press the record button. You can't just talk to the tape player. Oh yeah, that's what he says. You can't just talk to the tape player and say change the tape. You've got to press the record button and start the process of re-recording and erasing, writing over the existing tapes. So if the existing tapes say things like you're inadequate, you're unworthy, you should feel guilty, you're the cause of your parents' divorce and the cause of your parents' problems, and you disappointed your parents and things like this, then you've got to rewrite those tapes, either erase them or write over them. And that kind of makes sense to me. You can't just talk to the tape recorder and say tomorrow is going to be a better day and I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to be rich and famous and have a lot of positive affirmations. So anyhow, okay, I'm going to stop this one and this will go to part 3.